Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. Back in the mid-90s, when I first started playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay First Edition played a huge part in helping me understand the world of Warhammer. It was a real world-building exercise for me and probably for the designers of the games at that time as well. And now we're in a new era of Warhammer the Old World, and we're just about to see the release of Warhammer the Old World Role-Playing Game by Cubicle 7, and I've been very lucky enough to be joined by Dom and Pádraig of Cubicle 7 to talk all about the game.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description.
Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me. I've given a little brief intro, but why don't you do it in your own words, Dom? Tell me what you do and with Cubicle 7.
Excellent. Yes. So I'm Dom McDowell. I run Cubicle 7 and head up the creative and design studio in-house as well. So it's, the whole sort of range from the usual kind of like running a small business kind of things through to principal design and being up to my ears in all of the stuff that's happening with all the wonderful talented teams that we have here at Cubicle 7, which sounds like a brilliant way to hand over to Pádraig.
Yeah, I'm Pádraig Murphy. I'm a senior producer here at Cubicle 7, and I work on multiple different Warhammer lines with a lot of great producers and graphic designers and artists and writers and more. So I've been lucky to work on Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and the Old World and the Horus Heresy and Imperium Maledictum and lots of fun Warhammer role-playing goodness over the years. So yeah, it's been a pleasure.
It's a lot, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on at the moment. I've been following you guys for a long time. And some of my viewers are very much tabletop wargame players, so they may not be as familiar with you guys. So you cover the Warhammer Fantasy roleplay range. They may have seen that tangentially, and I've mentioned it in some of my videos before. So how did the Old World come about? How did you get the gig?
I think as soon as the news was announced that the Old World was coming back, I was straight. I was working with Games Workshop at the time. We were working with Games Workshop at the time on a range of wonderful lines. But I think Pádraig, there was that call where it was like, we have to do this.
We knew we were doing something straight away, but we didn't know what we were going to do necessarily. So there was a lot of interesting conversations about how what that expression of it would be, and also just what was it going to be, because there wasn't a lot of information about it early days.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we went through the full range of options in house as well. Whether this should be something that we did with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition, whether it should be a standalone thing, and I think the more we explored the options, because I think at the beginning we were thinking along the lines of that it would be part of the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay ecosystem, for want of a better word. But the more we looked at it, there was the two kind of areas where that would have caused us problems. I think the first one being that, because again, we thought, well, maybe we can do supplements that maybe would cover both eras. And that would be great. And, we get lots of places for people to play. But of course, especially from in the Empire or any of the human areas, in the over 200 years difference, each of those places would have burnt down like 50 times, maybe. There'd be no people in common between those eras. Maybe some of the big stone buildings might survive that. So you'd be looking at completely different places anyway, in effect. All of the political situations are different, and there was basically we'd be doing 2 books anyway to cover that kind of thing. And I think the going along with that was that we already have Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and it's got such an amazing setting and time that sort of was all dictated by that. We didn't really need to replicate that, but it did give us the opportunity to have a rule system that was that little bit more accessible, maybe something that we could use to bring in new players and people who are getting into the old world, who maybe haven't tried a role-playing game. So I think between those two things, it was really clear that the way to go was to have it as its own thing, and give it the space really for you to really flourish in that, and keep WFRP different as well.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, because WFRP's not going away, is it? For anyone out there who does play it.
No, definitely. We're thundering into the 40th anniversary of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay next year.
I assume it will live evolved, in that regard.
Yeah, we have many, many, many years of plans for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
Brilliant stuff. So you talked about maybe getting new players in or a fresh approach. So let's talk what is different. What's new about this game compared to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay?
We've done a lot of things different. I might talk about the system for a moment, but Dom, you might want to talk about the narrative setup then. Is that good production?
That sounds good.
Great. Well, the system it's a D10 system. So you roll 10 sided dice. You roll a dice pool. But it uses a very familiar stat line. So anyone who has picked up just the war game, the Old World Table of Miniatures game, they're going to instantly be like, oh, I know what all these stats are. They tell you how many dice to roll. You have skills that are associated with each stat, and they tell you the number you're looking to roll at or below to succeed. And one success is enough to do a thing, maybe with a caveat of like, oh, it could have been better. And then the more successes you do, the better you do that thing. So whether that's scrambling up the top of a roof in the village of Talagat to get a good look at what's coming over the walls, or it's to strike down a goblin who's ambushed you from the great forest, then that you do it better with more dice, and that's essentially it. And wargamers are used to rolling big pools of dice, I feel, and looking for the magic number. So I think it'll feel familiar in that way, and you can sort of take any profile that you have in the war game and have at least the basic stat line and know, okay, that's what that thing is sort of like. And obviously it's a role-playing game. We add a lot of depth of like skills and abilities to that, but that's in there as a basic sort of touchstone between the two, which I quite like. So that's interesting, and I think it makes it a lot more accessible in some ways than some other role-playing games. It's very quick just to pick up some dice, get rolling, get a result, and have done a thing, and then move on to the next action, the next player.
And everything you need is on the character sheet as well, isn't it? Yeah. So you're not constantly having to look up and reference things. It's it tells you how many dice you're rolling, what number you need to roll equal to or lower, and that's it. So with there's any difficulty modifiers or anything like that, all that is adding or subtracting dice from the dice pool. Yeah. So it's really quite. Once you've explained it to somebody, you don't need to explain it again. They can pick it up very quickly, and then it's got the depth of gameplay options that'll keep more experienced players happy as well. But that core game loop, that's something that people get their heads around really easily.
Sounds really encouraging. As someone who's looking to get my 10-year-old who plays tabletop war games with me involved, and that sounds very good, very tangible. One of the things I've noticed with him is we play a bit of Old World. We've also played 40k. He loves the accessibility of a stat card with everything you need on there. And I can see that this, in a different way, but being replicated and makes it a lot easier for him to have a reference that he can look at. And like you mentioned, that complexity, well, you can add that as a games master, can't you? And yes, how you tell the story. That's where so much of, well, it depends how you like to role play. And I haven't role played for a very long time, but so much of that is in the tale and the telling of it rather than just what's going on with the mechanics as well. So carry on.
And if players are looking for that, like if they really want to make a character just like really great at something or has a specific little loopy trick thing that they can do, there's talents, there's abilities, there's lores, there's loads of equipment. They can go down into that rabbit hole if they want, but the basic experience for players should be really accessible.
Yeah, sounds good. I think that goes really. I think for everybody, no matter how much lore they know, or how long they've been playing in the Warhammer world, and part of the approach that we've taken on accessibility is to approach the lore side of it as well. So we wanted on the character sheet there to be ways into the game that provided people with bits of lore, so that nobody's stuck thinking, okay, how would I react in this sort of situation? What bits of the world would I interact with? So we've got there's contacts that we're addressing that with. So you've got somebody who've got a relationship with the character sheet will tell you how you know them and what they do. So you can always go and say, oh, right, this mystery has been presented to me. I'm going to go and talk to my contact because I think they'll know something about this. And it's a way of, just I think sometimes with role-playing games, the people who know the setting best can dominate a little bit just because they know how the world works and how to engage with it. So we wanted to make sure that, even the people who didn't have as much deep lore had that way into the story. They've always got something that they can do and a way of interacting with the world.
That sounds really good. It also almost teaches you how to role play. Maybe if you haven't before, you go, this is how it works. You go and have these conversations, and this is how the narrative builds. Because that's not always apparent if you're not used to a tabletop role play game. What do I do now? And it sounds like a really neat way and a really practical way of achieving that. It's very, very good. So, tell me about the setting and how you're approaching the setting, which is new but also really old. It's a bit of a challenge, maybe.
Yeah, it's. I think following on from that approach that that we had with getting people into the game as quickly as possible. One of the things that I think is really important is a really clear purpose for the party. So and again, old hands kind of will go along with it. You'll get the setup and everyone will realize, okay, in the game, this means we need to do these sort of things. But there can sometimes be a little bit of a disconnect with that as well. So we wanted a really strong, compelling, this is what the game's about. And everybody will be engaged with this. So we came up with the concept of the Grim Portent, which is how everybody's adventure will start. So I'll hand it to Pádraig to tell you about those.
Yeah, so we wanted to tie people into the world and the setting and the adventure straight away, and that's, as Dom said, that's what the Grim Portent does. So the Grim Portent is, so this is a different era than the end times sort of era, right? So this is a moment where the empire is sort of fragmented, and you've got an awful lot of different powers vying for control, and the empire is sort of looking a bit inward in that regard. So the machinations of the various claimants to the throne and the elector counts. They can be much more important to you than like random rumors of beastmen in the forests. There's always beastmen. It's somebody, they nothing too strange there. Undead, what are you talking about? We won the vampire wars 100 years ago. The von Carsteins are definitely never going back. That's all sorted. Don't worry about it. What we need to worry about is the barony next over. So it's an era where people are a bit wrapped up in the ordinary business of just trying to like keep ahead in a fairly, tough world that is the old world. And the Grim Portent is the moment where you sort of see past that veil and realize, oh, there's actually terrible machinations going on behind the scenes that could throw all of this that we just take for granted into ruin. And certainly your life is going to be thrown into ruin, because when you see that thing in the Grim Portent, it sees you back, and it gets its claws into you, and it knows that you know about it, and now you need to be taken out, basically. And whether that's like a cult of sort of a nameless god, or some kind of undead, vampire or similar, or it's like a beastman shaman who's sort of like was sacrificing you at a herdstone, but you get away and now you're sort of like slightly tainted by the touch of that magic. Whatever it is, they know that you know too much and you need to be removed. And that the world, you can't go back to the life you had exactly, because this is always in the background now. This is something that has to be dealt with. And that's your sort of intro to the world, as it were. You've got a very focused exposure to some sort of threat. That it sees you as a problem and you're going to be removed unless you do something about it. And you just can't ignore it. You're going to be pulled into this adventure. So the idea was to like help GMs. So we're giving some example Grim Portents, and we discuss, we really pull back the veil and it's like, here's what we're thinking about when we're designing them, so that you can design your own Grim Portents for your party. And draw them into the world like that, and give you a really good starting point for what should be a great campaign.
Yeah, and it really unifies the party, I think, doesn't it? Because you're all in this; it's coming for you. No one's really going to take you that seriously. You can't really go to anybody for help with a lot of this stuff, because everybody's assumption is that these problems are not real problems. You're making it up. And it's also like a window then into the world that lies behind the apparent world, the world that you've known so far. So there's an enemy network, basically, the dark threads that exists as the map of all of the basically the bad guys that are operating and interacting with each other as well as with you as well. So, say you've got the undead that you've come across. They are they found out about you. They know that you know about them. They know they're not powerful enough to really defend themselves if seriously or if the Empire forces are seriously mobilized to come and get them. So they're trying to kill you. They're probably not going to act themselves. They'll be maybe working through a couple of groups. They might send a gang of footpads after you. Maybe there's a bounty hunter that they're going to engage. Maybe they've got some kind of pact with the beastmen that we were talking about. And the next time you leave the safety of a town, you're going to be ambushed. So, but then those groups also have their connections and their goals and what they're trying to achieve. So, what we're doing is giving the GM this huge array of potential enemies, or maybe allies as well. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, after all. So there's a huge amount to play there with, and that goes beyond the scope of the immediate. So. It's I think it's one of those things that really makes it feel like a living, breathing world, because maybe the threat that's out to get you, maybe they hide those footpads. Those footpads could be open to bribery, or maybe somebody else has also engaged the footpads as well. They're playing two sides off against each other, and there could be an opportunity there where they maybe just decide to come to you guys for help because you've obviously been able to fend off these guys in the past. We'll pay you if you can protect us from the other lot. So it's a really real kind of feeling world and system you're operating within. A huge number of tools for the GM to use then.
Yeah, it seems like it. It feels like it's a way of creating that perfect intro to a story or a film, or that hook that you start the story with, but then it can grow off in so many other possibilities. And you imagine these characters may be returning for second or third campaigns, and this is all part of their history and their background at that point. So let's talk about Talagat. So you've created a new town. I'm guessing it's a town rather than a city to sort of base the initial operations around. Let's talk about a little bit about that and where that came from.
Yeah, I can take that one for a little bit, Tom, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so Talagat was Talagat has been in the setting for a while, but it was where we really wanted to dive into one place a lot, right? And it's not to which was to show basically GMs how to here's how detailed a town should be, or your setting should be. You should know who's around. You should know what it looks like. You should know what the various allies and antagonists and so on that you could run into and its surrounds are. So for our setting, we chose Talagat. It's a fortified port on the sort of Wizard's Way, which it's just outside the Talbaston, which is the huge crater that the city of Talabheim lies within. There's one known legal way in and out of Talabheim, and that's up the Wizard's Way and back down, and that goes through Talagat. So Talagat's a very interesting place because an awful lot of wealth passes through it, and that means opportunity, but not a lot of wealth ever stays there. So it's usually going somewhere. It's going up or down the Great Forest Road. It's going up and down the River Talabak, or increasingly, it's going into Duke Ludwig's coffers, or into the nobles of Talabheim, the Feuerbachs, and so on. They're taking their tolls at every corner. They're sort of like this power that's looming over it all. So in a lot of ways, Talagat, despite being vital to the region, is sort of an afterthought in a lot of people's minds. And that makes it a great place for wanderers and wastrels and ne'er-do-wells and night exiles and deserters to sort of gather, just on it's just on the edge of being a sort of this out liminal sort of just beyond the wall location. That makes it really, really interesting. And we've had great fun mapping it and exploring it and diving on into it and putting plot hooks absolutely everywhere. And something that you'll find reading the player's guide or GM's guide is our sort of default assumption is, hey, here's how you play this character. And if they're in Talagat, here's a little bit extra for you. That you'll always have a sort of a place to ground them in. And that's part of that. It's to make it feel like a living world. It's because I think Warhammer fans love detail in all things. They want to know more. But it's also an accessibility thing. So if you choose to be a rat catcher and the game is set in Talagat, the default setting, you'll know about the rat flute straight away, which is Every so often, the River Talagat floods. The rats all move inland, and the wealthier people live inland because they don't like their houses being flooded. But they're full of rats now, so that's a great time to make money as a rat catcher because you can charge a little extra to the nobles to clean out their wine cellar and so on. So you have a little bit of lore straight away, and you can feel kind of connected to this. And then you'll have 2 contacts. So the contacts are fully fleshed out NPCs, nice full color portrait, a backstory, their own agendas. There's 20 of them. Everyone knows 2 of them, and they're in or around Talagat. And you can straight away, as a new player, you have this contact who, well, you know what their place in society is. You know how you know them, and if you're sort of caught on the hop of like somebody's dead, who even looks after that in this setting of Warhammer? Like, I don't understand. Is there a town watch? You can check your thing. You know the name of a contact, and you can say to the GM, actually, I want to talk to Carolina or whoever that I know, and the GM knows their story, and they have these like cast of NPCs ready to go, and then those NPCs, of course, they're always a little more intriguing than they seem, and they have hooks to the dark threads that Dom talked about earlier. They have their own agendas, their own interrelations, so they're very it's really a campaign setting as well as a game we're giving people with this. So I think that it'll. Talagat is great. I've really grown to love it as a setting.
It's There's a lot to love about Talagat, and a lot to hate about Talagat as well. I think you feel.
It's that perfect place. Great to play a game in. I would hate to live here. this would be awful.
I think I love the ferrymen. There's the ports on both sides of the river, so you can go across the bridge, which is taxed, or not. Ostensibly cheaper to get the ferry across, apart from there's a mid-current fee that needs to be paid when you hit the middle of the river, and if you don't pay that one as well, then you and your goods go in.
Sounds fantastic.
Yes.
So for existing fans of Warhammer Fantasy, it feels, my assumption as well, it's very recognisable and familiar in most senses. So what sort of things did you do, and how many conversations did you have around that backwards engineering, that 200 years earlier thing? How did you go about that?
I mean, quite a bit, and loads of ones with like the really helpful people in the studio at Games Workshop as well, and in the licensing department, without whom we would not be able to do what we do. They're collaborators as well as fulfilling that sort of role as it's a business relationship, but it's a collaboration, and it's been great. But yeah,
that's something that's so amazing. I think with working with Games Workshop, it is just everybody loves everything that they do with such passion. That it's a real collaborative process. Which isn't always the case. You'll have some licensing teams that you might work with. They're really just on they're on the licensing business side, and you don't have that engagement. But Games Workshop, just everybody is so into it that it makes it really easy for us to collaborate with them, and really generous with their time, as Pádraig was saying. I think that the Old World team have been really really great to work with, and we've had lots of great conversations with them, and been able to ask questions and really get into it.
Hobbyists, most of them. It comes through. It's very, very apparent.
Yes.
Yeah, but so I mean, to go to your question directly, there was a lot of we had some really great times with them where we were trying to get to like what's the vibe, what's the feeling of this age, and it's because there's a lot of great classic nostalgic stuff that's back, right, which is great, but it's also it is a unique take on the setting. It's a new era. And it's different, because we talk about the Empire, and sometimes there's one Empire. I think the example of the Vampire Wars, that was the most time, when the Empire was closest to reunification in the last millennia, probably, of the setting. And then there's one Empire because you're dealing with the Von Carsteins or whatever. But a lot of the time there isn't, and if the Grand Duchy of Talagat was fighting off like a serious beastman raid, I think that you could rely on some people for help. Like None would probably send some steam tanks, or whatever, and but would Reichland come to their aid? Not necessarily, and that's why the elements of those dark threads are, they reflect the sort of nobility, and they're kind of can be a bit callous and sort of realpolitik of it sometimes. That well, if those beastmen burn down those cities, or, you know, burn down those villages or whatever, we'll have a very good casus belli to seize them, because obviously Ludwig can't take care of them. But maybe, you know, maybe as part of Reichland, they'd be much safer. So, you know, you have elements of that cutthroated bloody mindedness as well, and I think that's really key Warhammer stuff. But you know, it's also.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say it's also a bit more of a Gilded Age in many ways. You know, people haven't had because I think the Great War Against Chaos that we, you know, the Graniers know is coming within a few decades. That's going to change the setting sort of fundamentally, right? Because that's the moment where you cannot deny the power of chaos anymore. You know, you can never feel safe again after something like that happens.
We were trying to define what that sort of like Gilded Age kind of felt like, because obviously there's lots of bad stuff going on, and I just remember that phrase. At one point, it's the stage where the Empire has the luxury of being able to afford a civil war. So normally it's just so hard beset from all sides.
Yeah.
All right. No, we've got a bit of time. We've got a bit of a breather. Let's
settle some disputes.
Yeah,
you're so right though. So much of, even before Games Workshop even dreamt of the end times, so much of the setting was focused around the impending doom post the Great War Against Chaos. Anyway, I'm reading Guardians of the Forest at the moment, Graham O'Neill novel, and there's even little hints in there. And that's obviously written quite a while ago, but there's lots of little hints in there about, well, the world's going to end soon anyway, isn't it? And you're right, it's that wouldn't be there in this current setting. And as an old fantasy player, and maybe many in the community watching this, we don't actually realise that as much. We still feel the game was very much as it was, and the setting is slightly different.
Yeah.
But circling back to something you mentioned earlier, you mentioned Ratcatcher, which is probably the most famous character class or profession.
We could not have one.
You could not have one. So what direction are you going with that? Is it very similar to WFRP, or have you changed it at all?
Well, so we have some WFRP staples that we definitely wanted to have. We wanted to show a cross section of sort of ordinary people in the game as well. You know, because they're the ones that can be affected by these grim portents and find out things that they shouldn't know. And I think it's great to be a sort of a merchant who knows like a little bit too much and has seen a little bit too far to ever just be comfortable, you know, counting their silver again. I think that's a great trope. But we also wanted to include a few more of, like, from the word go, because we've added a lot to our WFRP 4th edition. But from the word go, we wanted to have some sort of miniatures straight from the tabletop, some careers straight from the tabletop, where you could like pluck up a model or miniature and with a little bit of sort of kit bashing, make it your character and have it in the game. So there was a little bit of that for me because I have the hobbyist coming out as well. But you know, the beauty of the Grim Portents is it pulls people together from all walks of life, so we could have some more, we could have quite a diversity of people. And the game is like, it's still grim, and it's still a game where like death's not that far away, so do be careful playing it, sort of thing. But we'd said that like Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is sort of grim and perilous. That's its sort of byword. The catchphrase, as it were, for the old world is grim and glorious. So it's an era where there's still still actual heroism kind of can exist amidst it all. Also, that can be in the end times, but I think it's always a light that just gets the gutters out quite quickly. With notable exceptions like Patrick and Felix and like, but I think in this era there's a little bit more room for it, for genuine, earnest heroism. Like I think Bretonnia is the perfect example of that as well, where we know the peasants don't have a good time, but like the nobility of Bretonnia genuinely believes that this quite horrible class system they've built is for the best, and they protect the common people. Have you seen like how big an orc can get? Like, you can't. Peasants couldn't fight them. We need knights, and we need a system that can support that. And like, there's a genuine feeling of heroism among the Knights of Bretonnia that, in my mind at least, is a bit more cynical by the end times, or a little bit more tainted by like how they sort of kick every passing peasant, from their height of their horse. But so it's got a bit of that for me, and the careers have a bit of, are a bit broader for that then. So we have like Night Exile is there. There's Witch and Wizard are there as well. Wizard obviously covers a lot of them. We've got soldiers. We've got various types of handgunners and the like that you can play, and alongside them we have sort of merchants and the like as well, because I like that, and everyone's got their thing they can do. Everyone will be useful. Everyone has context and assets, and people can learn whatever skills they practice during their downtime. You can get a bit better with a sword, so you can. It's a very free form career system in that way, so you can grow into someone who can meet the needs of your new lifestyle.
Right.
But, one of our original concepts, sort of like when we were sort of trying to picture what the party would look like, what the adventures would look like, was basically the shopkeepers of a town, and maybe like the blacksmith, the baker, and they've had this brush with something, and then they see the sign that this thing is back, and it's they're walking up to each other with that sort of silent, grim nod, and then they all assemble around the back of the stables, and okay, they're back. What are we going to do this time? So it's that sort of ordinary life kind of thing is part and parcel of it. But anybody who thinks that we're going soft with this Gilded Age kind of stuff, we can reassure that we've gone even more hardcore with the injury and the consequences of fight system as well. So not content with eliminating or having the horrendous critical tables and things like that, we've now also done away with wounds or hit points. So if you get hit with a weapon, there's no padding, there's no nothing. If it gets through your armor, you're getting a wound, and you've got to roll on the critical table. So it's brutal.
Hyper realistic.
You shouldn't die from like one unlucky goblin strike, but nothing's quite off the table, basically.
There was one game, wasn't it, where I had that first thing, and it was I've lost how many teeth?
It was the first thing. It was just like, you've lost those teeth. Probably not your baby teeth. They're probably gone forever now. So, we have a bit of that there, and we have a lot of the grisly injury is all there. You can lose fingers and hands.
It was okay as well. Tal provided me with new teeth.
Oh, that's fair enough. Yeah, I imagine if you were from the peasantry, you're lucky to have teeth in the first place. So
that's another way they win.
I was going to ask you about how brutal the combat was, but you've answered it quite well there. So is it a game then that's kind of designed to be a nice balance between this fighting and there's action there, but there's also a lot of adventure and problem solving, rather than something that's kind of more of an action movie? It's more of an adventure movie. Would that be right?
Yeah, that's definitely fair to say. I think within the combat as well, it's you've got that lethality and to it, but we've also tried to make it very tactical as well. So there's more options for like giving ground and ending a fight that you're doing badly in. It's not all just meat grinder until one so all of one side is dead. So there's more options, and like your positioning is very important as well. We're using zones for combat, which is a really useful. I don't know. I don't want to say abstraction because it's only slightly an abstraction, but it's a good way of really keeping tabs on where everybody else is in relation to each other, and taking out some of the minutiae of the min-maxing approach to combat. The making sure that you are exactly 5.5 feet away. Not quite. So it's
only 5 foot closer or further away. Is a.
That sort of thing. So it means that there's a lot of really interesting choices that you can have as well, and there's a staggered state as well. So if you hit someone and don't wound them, then they become staggered. That makes them more vulnerable. So you get more tactical options around that. And if your character is staggered, then maybe everyone's going to come and try and protect you while you get yourself back into back to normal.
You find your footing again, basically, get back on your feet, as it were. Yeah. Brilliant. So staggered is nice, and learning to exploit that in enemies is really key, and learning to force enemies to like give ground. And if you can be behind someone and they give ground into to the zone you're in, they're now broken. So they're actually fleeing altogether, which can be nice. So it's very worthwhile surrounding people, because a lot of role-playing games, tactical games generally sometimes become like the block in the middle of the map. where we all just hit each other until this is over. Whereas the old world of fun is it's a good bit more dynamic. So you're constantly moving around, and there's a real reason to want to flank or want to leave yourself with somewhere to run. That just to take a step back and don't let your back get to a wall, and or find a way to force the enemies back to a wall, or there's a lot of nice bits like that I quite enjoy.
Yeah,
definitely.
Beyond that, we've got sorry.
No, I was just going to say it sounds very much more cinematically narrative. Like I was just thinking that as you were saying, rather than we do all this role play and then there's this combat bit where we roll some dice and some of you get injured and then we move on to the next bit. It feels like it's all part of the same story, which is what you want.
Yeah, definitely. And then beyond combat, we've got investigation is a big part. So there's a good amount of rules and guidance on that as well.
Yeah, and we try to be explicit with GMs, and we've kind of like shown them our thinking a little bit, so you'll learn like what clues and insights are and how you should use them in a campaign and all that kind of thing. Players have awareness for that too, so they know the sort of like questions to ask to get the basic info, and then after that it's up to them. Maybe if they're very skillful, their character can tell them something, but we're really encouraging GMs to be like, if the players make a leap of logic and it's right, you should just go, yeah, that's right. The glass is inside the room, which means someone broke in from the outside, and trying to give that kind of guidance around it, because there's an awful lot of like the thing with the Dark Treads is the GM knows where everybody is, how all their connections are, and the players, like, if they want to survive, will try and put that together, of their own bat and have their own conspiracy board with string and so on. So investigation is important. Exploration is key, and social interaction with. We have like loads of NPCs even outside the 20 very detailed context. There's tons of sort of other characters around, and getting to know them, getting to understand them is important. And equally also knowing the best way to run a best to go through in the end of a lance can be clutch too. So there's something there, I think, for every style of game player.
And how to mix your magic. That was a good moving on to that, wasn't it?
Yeah, magic was a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time. I love magic in games. And that's another distinct part of the era, is that like, well, there's no colleges of magic. There's nobody in Altdorf saying like, you will be a bright wizard and you will just use the red wind to fire, and if you use anything else, well, first of all, you can't. You just forget it. It's not possible. There's nobody doing that. So you have an elementalist who may know there's 8 winds of magic, but probably thinks, well, there's elemental spirits that live in the ether, and they respond to my will if I make demands of them in certain ways. And that's what I'm doing when I cast magic. And we might know, okay, you're manipulating the winds, but they would understand, have this totally different understanding, and be doing effects that look like a sort of an end times bright wizard of setting someone on fire with their mind effectively. But they might also like whisper to the earth and have stones rise up out of it and form a little horrible homunculus, and and that's all within the powers of a wizard. Magic is still dangerous. If you get too many miscasts, you build up in a sort of a miscast pool, and then you're rolling that, and there's a horrible table of horrible outcomes on miscasts for you. But you can create your own spells. We give guidance on that. Casting in the midst of combat's a bit more complicated if it's your own spell, in the sense of harder for you to do. But you can go away and, as a downtime endeavor, scribe into your book Stuart's Lesser Summoning of Horrible Golems, and now that's a spell, and that's easier to cast, and you can that's something of value as well. You can teach that to another wizard, or you can give them your grimoire and let them copy it down, and you've got a lot of freedom within that, because magic is a little less constrained in this era.
That's great.
But equally, peasantry still fear you and loathe you if you. So you gotta be careful as well, and make your familiar imp walking book on legs hide in the back of the cart.
Some crudely sewn sort of torso for it, like
yes, exactly.
flopping around on top.
Brilliant.
Please do not look at my son.
I think that's a really strong part of the game. It's the ability to do that improvisational magic, which I think is always something that I feel as a wizard you should be able to do. You should be able to modify and tailor your spell casting to what's going on. But obviously, in the context of a role playing game, that can be very complicated. It requires a lot of on the spot planning from the player as well. So I think having that approach where we've got spells which are the commonly known spells or grimoire that you come across. Or you can, do jazz magic. We haven't called it that yet. I'm not allowed to call it that again, am I?
No. Yeah, you've got that kind of on the fly stuff. It's cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what people will do with it. From the get go, in the core rule book, we have illusionism, elementalism, necromancy, and oh my gosh, which one did I not have to cut for space? There's 4 cores of magic, and there will be more in future supplements, obviously.
And there's a lot more to get into. Yeah. But also any rumours that I may or may not have created a massive avatar of Sigmar to tell the witch hunters to go back into the Reichland, and also that their leader was an imposter. Completely unfounded. And my character was actually going to the stake for that.
That's got me thinking a little bit about character generation. It's something I remember as a teen, maybe taking a lot longer than it should have done because we hadn't read the rules properly. But what's it like in this newer version of the game?
So right. Well, you've got some random tables if you want to randomize everything from for the get-go, and you'll get bonus XP if you do that, which is I feel a staple of quite a few of our games now, Tom. Right? But we like that. And it gives like very different eclectic parties that are fun to play in, and is a challenge for old players who know what they might have an experience and they can try something else. You pick an origin, so which is where you're from, and you might be a wood elf, a high elf, a dwarf, a halfling. You could be a human from the Empire or a human from Britannia, who, if you're using the default setting, will probably be an exile of some kind, or one of the unfortunate peasants that the Lord has dragged into exile with them, or perhaps a questing knight or their retainers. So you've got all those options to begin with. You can roll or choose where your sort of characteristic bonuses are going. You get some random talents, and you have some choices within that. Bretonian peasants very good at toiling in the fields from talents and the like, and Bretonian nobility very noble. So you've got those options there, and then from that you go into career. Your career gives you sort of your favorite characteristics, which are they're cheaper to improve with XP. You get some skills from that. You get some trappings. You get like some nice lore and like some quotes and so on, and you also get like a key talent that's core to that career. So that's your sort of basic setup. Then you'll roll for a couple of contacts, and these are people you know. I think we discussed them before, so they're in around Talagat, but you also have archetypes. So GMs who want to set their game elsewhere, they'll sit down before and be like, okay, an important general, and some kind of sort of messenger courier. And the GM can be like, okay, I'll create those characters, and here's what they're like, and they can do that during play quite fluidly or with the players' input. Or I know some GMs will have it all written out beforehand. Nice big campaign with the for what things are going to be like. And then from there, you're into your Grimportant, your session 0.
Right. Fantastic. It sounds like it flows quite nicely, but definitely different to what I used to before. So I mentioned you talked about races and things there, and there will be a comment if I don't mention this, especially from the tabletop wargamers. We obviously have less legacy factions in the tabletop game now because some factions haven't yet, hopefully in the future, been brought back. How have you handled that? Is it the same legacy factions missing from the game completely, or are they able to be there as something you may come across? So maybe you could come across a Skaven or something.
So the focus is very much on the same factions that are appearing in the war game for loads of reasons. We're going to find out more about what they're like in this era as GW explores their narrative. And we're going to get to like and here's the role playing bit that's happening around that too. And so I'm very excited to see what Games Workshop are going to do. And we don't have at the moment, I don't think we've any particular insight on where things are next. So it gives me a great moment to speak freely. If they want to explore a certain faction or region within the Empire, like if we have Friedel Chainmaker coming down from the north into the wasteland, we've a great opportunity to be like, and if you were to have seen that and be exposed to that, here's the role-playing stuff around that. And here's the profiles for those folks, and here's what they're like, and so on. So that gives us great opportunity if we kind of are in step with that. There are a few things from the legacy factions that could show up here and there. is all I'll say.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
There's nothing, I think, 100% off the table. So do keep, don't get too comfortable, I suppose.
I suppose a bit of a follow-up to that is how compatible would be some of your publications for WFRP to be maybe used by GMs in campaigns. I'm sure I read it or heard in another interview that some profiles might be compatible one way or another. I wonder if that's another way of doing that should players wish to explore other areas of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of the things that that really appealed to us fairly early on, I think, with the systems that as we were developing the D10 dice pool system, is that there's relationships between the numbers. So if you're looking at bringing something over from WFRP, just moving it from basically use the tens as the number, and then you moved it onto the 1 to 10 scale. So when we're at the end of the process, we'll revisit that and just see, are there any logical sort of tweaks we need to make to that, or are there any other things that we need to consider? But I think that should be, there's a little bit of a difference between the way you're starting sort of skill levels rather than building directly off the attributes. So there might be a little bit of adjustment that we put into that. But broadly speaking, you're going to be able to use those stat blocks and adapt them fairly, very easily. So once we've got all the core books finished up, then we'll circle back on that one and see if there's any tweaks that need to go onto it. But yeah, should be good.
Yeah, or guidance or whatever that we can give players for
make
that leap. I think that the Warhammer world is so interesting that it makes perfect sense to want to explore it. Whichever system you happen to love more, WFRP 4 or the Old World might become your system, and you're going to want to do things from one and the other. And we're never going to be able to stick being like, no, you can't do that. We'd like to let people play the game they want to play and have a great time with their friends the way they want to do. So we'll try and do as much as we can.
Some wonderful resources that you guys have done, be that city guides or adventures or race guides. Recently, the dwarves have just I was flicking through that the other day. I imagine that players who pick up this game will be thinking, well, I'm just going to get that anyway and use it as a reference. And if there's things that they can do with some of the stats and rules as well, then more the better. But what we haven't really talked about is what's actually coming. You've both mentioned the player's book or something. So what's going to be launching soon? We haven't got a date yet, have we? Unless you want to say, but
no, not quite yet. Keep an eye on the website and sign up to the newsletter, and that's the best way of keeping up to date. But it's not far off. It's not far off at all. So the initial pre-order will be for the Player's Guide and the Games Master's Guide.
Yeah.
We have some lovely dice sets. We're looking at some larger scale maps. And a couple of other bits and pieces as well that could be in that package as well. So just things that will help people to get off to a good start with the game. Then behind that, we've got the starter set. So if you know our starter sets, then you'll know what to expect. But it's basically packed full of loads and loads of stuff. It's a big adventure that teaches you how to play the game as you go through it. And then a region guide as well, pre-gen characters, dice, etc., etc. So now, slight the slight situation we've got at the moment with tariffs, etc., means that anything that we traditionally would have printed in China, which starter sets are one of the things that we do there, there's quite a lot to them, and boxes are very expensive these days for some reason. So there's a bit of sort of like waiting and seeing exactly what format. We may have to move to like a starter book that we would do to start with. That might be a bit more straightforward, but we're still working all that out. So that's all. That's
along with the rest of the world.
It does seem like it, doesn't it? I think we seem, we don't seem to be in touch all wood that's available right now, but books don't seem to be too badly affected. But we're, I think our first shipment from China is coming into the US later this month, so that's when we'll find out. For reals.
Yes.
So that's fair. We do print in Europe as well. So if there are any problems, then it's just sort of doing more in Europe compared to China for a bit. But
Which sounds simple, but there's a lot of logistics to organising that, especially when you're about to launch something. But
yes, so that's all fun. But sorry, I veered off away from the fun.
Someone would have asked in the comments, to be honest with you, and it was something that was at the back of my mind. I thought, should I ask, or is that too? So you've offered it.
No, it's always happy to talk about stuff. It's it's
the whole industry is talking about it at the moment.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Yes. Look, I've been doing the same, even with the Games Workshop books. Looking at the back, that's printed in China. Is that going to be? How much is that going to cost in the States in a few months' time? But interesting.
We'll see what happens with shipping. But anyway, so start a product of some kind. I can summarize that as, and the GM screen will be the next ones after that. And then we've got loads that we're working on to follow. So an adventure book. I think it's always good to have some adventures early on in a product line to give people things to play with straight away once they finish with the starter set. We are looking. Well, we're making a campaign as well, so that'll move you around different kind of places. And with that pattern that we've got of the dark thread sort of enemy network and the contacts, the way that we've designed those so that you have the sort of your local version, but they also have like an archetype that goes with them. So you can use the same tables sort of no matter where you are, the same how they slot into the game. You're just sort of changing the specific person it relates to, and everything else just works as it would if you were using the Talagat one. So that structure is there for everybody to do. To create their own versions of it very easily, and then we'll be providing new ones of those then as we move around. Actually, we're still fighting over the exact order, but I think Nuln will feature fairly quickly.
Please.
We've got the audience, but Nuln will be a lot of fun to explore.
Yeah, and of course, with Taliban itself, going a bit more into there, and further afield as well. But we won't say anything too much about that there. But there's but the aim really, I think we want to make sure that we're covering a good amount of setting material, providing adventures for people to. Because I know everybody is quite time pressed at the moment, so writing your own adventures can be a bit of a challenge to find time for. So getting lots of adventure content, and then like we do with all of our games, really, expanding the player options, giving more places, a bit more details on more areas of the setting. More bestiary. So we've got lots more weird and wonderful creatures to hit your players with, and then magic as well.
Book of Magic,
yeah. So I think what have I missed? That's
loads more than I expected.
Yeah, when we say player options, that would also be something like an armory and new careers for new careers of like fighty types and investigative types and everything else as well. So we want to expand in multiple directions, but I think up to the adventure book, that's all set.
Yes.
Right. But then after that, genuinely, there's a bit of like, well, which one first? It's a good place to be in.
It sounds fantastic. I expected a lot more of. We're just going to have to see how it goes, how the first few books sell. But there's a lot of good plans and a lot of things coming in the future. It shows how invested you are, which is a really good sign for everyone that's watching this and as excited as I am.
We can't help ourselves. I think. It's just love it, and we want to see this stuff in the world.
Yeah, exactly. We have to make it for ourselves, if nothing else. So it would certainly be great if it sells like hotcakes. So if all your viewers could buy 6-7 copies, that would be brilliant. But we would certainly support it up to, like as long as we can. Basically,
I think because we're such long-term gamers as well, isn't it? I think I wouldn't really want us to do anything that we couldn't commit to doing a good level of support for, and to really give that sort of payoff, I suppose, isn't it? That it's always very frustrating when a game sort of like makes a load of promises and then just never really quite gets to fulfill it, for me anyway, as a gamer. So we tend to commit quite fully to our game lines, and gosh, what's WFRP on now? 4th edition. That's we've lost count, I think, officially, haven't we? I think.
Oh, I've no idea. Yeah.
There's a lot.
It's all knowing
My
which ones
shelves are
Yeah.
dangerously way down in the middle. But yeah, quite a lot of hardbound books available for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, it's that's been great though. I think it's really lovely to have. I remember when Games Workshop came and asked me to do Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay back in the dizzy days of the last decade. The before times, I think it's now still officially called.
Yes,
Isn't
I
it?
think so.
It was trying to act cool, but jumped up and down shouting yes, 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 please. But the enemy within was sort of like the second thought, really. With that, oh, wow, we can go and get the enemy within back in print, and that was fantastic. So no, it's been it's been awesome, but we can't help ourselves. I think is the short answer there.
Well, I'm glad you can't. So the best place do people find out the news? Obviously on the website for the new release. You've got your YouTube channel as well that you sort of do updates and things as well worth watching. Have you got more plans on there for when it launches the game, about the introduction to the game, anything like that?
Yes, we've got. We're just finishing up the usual sort of range of blogs and videos. So there'll be a lot more of those coming out around the build up to launch, and then once the game's launched, we'll have some actual play things as well. And as much as we can do, really, it's we're just juggling the making of the things with the talking about the things, trying to get that right.
Well, I've kept you both long enough, so thank you so much for the time. I'm really excited to hear about the game, and it's really exciting to see how much you were both excited about the game as well. That comes across, and I'm sure people will pick up on that as well. So really looking forward to it. So thank you for your time, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you again to Dom and Pádraig for agreeing to join me and spend some time talking about the game that's hopefully going to be out very soon. And I talked about it in the intro and a little bit throughout the interview, definitely in the discussions I had with them both beforehand. For me, Warhammer Fantasy was such an important part of world building back in those early days, and with Warhammer the Old World, we have a little bit less lore than we're used to. If you've played Warhammer Fantasy Battle for years, there was so many years of novels and different editions where the lore and storytelling and narrative of those games and the world built up over time. And now we're in a situation where much of what we see in our headcanon and what we know of the narrative is based on those later perceptions. So we're in a period of new world building now, and much of it is the same. Obviously, the miniatures look the same, the world generally looks the same, but there are some subtle differences. And at this time, where we have smaller arcane journals than the older army books, and we have less in the way of lore through novels, things like this roleplay release could be really important for the wider Warhammer the Old World, and I'm really excited about that for those reasons, really. So let me know what you think in the comments. Are you tempted to pick these things up? Are you going to play roleplay? I haven't played since I was in my teens, but I'm definitely planning to get back into it, even if it's just at home with my son and maybe a couple of his friends, or just online with a couple of friends. But I'm going to pick up all these publications because I love Warhammer, and I love Warhammer the Old World, and where there isn't a supplement that I might need, I'll definitely be dipping my toes into the WFRP 4th edition. In fact, I already own quite a lot of it, so do go and check those out as awesome resources if you haven't already. So let me know in the comments what you think. What do you like to see? Are you excited about seeing these new releases? Do you think it'll have an impact and a knock on to the tabletop game? It's really interesting what they said about being able to use the stat lines and maybe bring them onto the tabletop. I'm looking at narrative campaigns and things like that. When you bring a character from roleplay onto the tabletop, or maybe vice versa, could be lots and lots of fun. But thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please do give it a like, drop a comment below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I will cover this release more, and hopefully when I can get my eyes on the actual game, I will bring a review of it, so do look out for that. If you'd like to support me and the channel, please do check out my Patreon. There's a link in the comments below, loads of other affiliate links and things as well. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.